Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel Say What's Real TV. This review is for Hulu's Reasonable Doubt, Season 2, Episode 5, Guilty Until Proven Innocent. So we open up the episode with Jax and Lewis in the bed, and apparently neither one of them can sleep. So Jax, she gets up and goes to brainstorm on the Chanel case, trying to figure things out with Adrian and the Evan situation. Lewis, on the other hand, he gets up, goes to the bathroom, and texts Tony saying that we need to talk. I'm like, really, Lewis? So the next morning, Jax, she goes to see Chanel, and she asks her, does she know who Evan is? Chanel tells her that's JT's business partner, is also Adrian's business manager, so it's not uncommon that they'll be seen together. So she starts talking about Adrian, saying that he's not like the other friends that JT had because they all are enablers and moochers. But she says that he has saved her and made the last several months bearable. So one would ask, when you say saved you, was he the one that bopped JT over the back of the head? Or saved you because the two of you had this hot, steamy love affair that took you into this fantasy land that allowed you to escape what you had going on back home with JT. So Jax just threw it out there that Adrian unalived JT, that Chanel didn't do it and she was protecting somebody else. So of course Chanel, she's shocked that Jax would even come at her like that, and she's like, this is ridiculous. How could you even say something like that? And looking her dead in her face, Jax told her, I think you're lying and I think you're trying to hide something. Chanel goes into this whole spiel about Jax hating women and not supporting black women or believing them or even having all these women clients and this and that and the other. Like, Chanel, we don't care about that right now. We really don't. And whether all that is true or not, she came back to work early for you. That lady was not ready to come back at all. She keeps having a panic attack every 2 seconds, but still trying to be a better friend to you by sticking with this case. But you sit in jail with your split personalities and all this entitlement and act like somebody owes you something. If I was Jax, I would go right to Corey and tell him he can have first, second, and third chair because I'm done. But Jax, being the better person, she handled the situation quite well if you ask me. So she slightly and politely let Chanel know, look, you can believe what you want about me. Go ahead, get it all out. Say what you got to say. And yes, I'm going to question any client. I don't care if they're Winnie the Pooh. Now, she didn't say Winnie the Pooh, but the point was it didn't matter who it was. If she felt like they were lying, she's going to question them because the ultimate goal is to keep the person out of prison. And Jax told her, and for the record, deflection is not a flex. I'm like, Jax, I'm glad you peeped it. So basically, Jax had to tell her, stop with all your shenanigans. Like, this is not personal. I'm here to be your lawyer. You're going to be my client going forward for the next several months. So Chanel, she comes even harder with the entitlement and attitude, and she tells Jax, I'm the one that unalived JT, and that's that on that. Like, leave it alone. What I need for you to do is win this case and get me out of here. And I'm like, girl, who are you talking to? Jax was like, is that a threat? She said, not yet. I said, what you mean not yet? What you gonna do, Chanel? I'm like, girl, Jax, you better than me. So Lewis, he can't focus. He can't think straight. So he calls his brother Terrence and tells him all about Tony and what's going on and how she's pregnant. And Jax has no clue that him and Tony actually hooked up. So Terrence asked him about using protection, and he said for the most part him and Tony used it, but there was just this one time. I'm like, Lewis, you are so, I don't know. Lewis is just weird to me because I just don't understand. Why did he even call her after he saw her hunching JT in the first place? Like, why would you want to hunch behind JT out of all people? So Terrence tells him he needs to try to find out if the baby is his. So Lewis mentioned calling Tony, but she hasn't responded. And Terrence was like, wait a minute, why are you even calling her? And he says to find out what's going on. And Terrence is like, well, what do you have her name saved as in your phone? And he tells him Tony. And clearly, Lewis is not your average player. He doesn't know the game. So Terrence, he starts clowning him like, are you the big brother or am I the big brother? Like, why am I schooling you? So he tells Lewis the second they hang the phone up, he needs to change Tony's name to something that wouldn't be that obvious to the average eye, like Alex Dunn. And I felt like he was just giving Lewis an example of a name to use, not so much use that particular name, which goes to show that Lewis is not that slick and sneaky. He's not really a cheater like that. So over at the firm, Jax is telling them all about Evan and how he's connected with Adrian and that she thinks Chanel is trying to protect Adrian. Corey, he doesn't give a damn about Adrian, Evan, Robbie, Bobby, Ricky, or Mike. He says that Chanel just might be telling the truth, and that's what they're going to focus on. The self-defense, that's it, and that's all. He leaves, and Crystal, she tells Jax that she believes her that Chanel is covering up for somebody and that she's learned a long time ago, always bet on Jax. So we get yet another scene between Adrian and Evan, with Evan begging for this $30 million that Adrian does not have to give. Adrian keeps trying to tell him to wait till after the trial, it'll all be over soon. So Evan asks him, does Chanel know that he's been keeping Adrian's secret, cleaning up all his mess so nobody knows what really went down before JT was unalived? So Adrian tells him no, she doesn't know, and that's between me and you. And then all of a sudden, Adrian, he gets this battery in his back from I don't know where, and he's being all threatening to Evan, like Evan's supposed to be scared of him now. And I'm like, wait a minute. Just last week, you were getting slapped around with a piece up in your face. And now all of a sudden this week, you're the big bad wolf. And then the two of them, they come up with some type of agreement. So I just thought about something. Where did Adrian get the $10 million from that he got out of the bank last week? Because they made it seem like he was a free agent. He got hurt last season, so he wasn't playing anymore. And they act like he didn't have it like that. And the fact that he was at Chanel's house after JT was unalive, trying to help the ladies sell off stuff so they can raise money for Chanel's bail, and you over there sitting on $10 million, why didn't you offer up the $2 million to get her out if you had it? That doesn't make sense, because if you're over there helping raise the bail money, they didn't have a problem with you being there, and nobody even questioned why you were there. And another thing, this so-called secret that Evan is talking about, does it have to do with the $30 million scheme, or is it something totally different that they are hiding, since he said clean up your messes? So over at the firm, you got Corey and Jax having a little banter back and forth, because Corey has to let it be known once again that we're going to focus on self-defense. And Jax is trying to get him to understand that they should focus on other possibilities and suspects that could also help get Chanel off. And Corey hit her with fewer emotions, more reasons. And side note, I thought it was funny that Corey mentioned a couple of times talking to Tanya allegedly about the so-called video going viral or whatever, but just last week, Tanya made it seem like she was done with Corey, period. So later on, we see Jax and Lewis watching the primetime interview with Chanel. And Jax still can't believe how Tanya eased in the whole Tony pregnancy situation. And I'm wondering, is that something that's going to come back? Who was the person that sent Tanya the information about that whole pregnancy thing? So now you got Lewis over here low-key trying to get some information out of Jax on the sly, asking her, has she spoken to Tony? And she's like, no, I haven't talked to her, but I know I'm going to run into her eventually at Carpool, or Naima's going to want to play with Hattie. And she says she doesn't know what she's going to say to Tony, but she better hurry up and figure it out before the prosecution puts her on the witness stand. So baby, as soon as she says this, you can see Lewis starts getting real nervous and scared. He's sweating bullets over there. He's like, do you think they will put her on the witness stand? And Jax says yes, especially after this interview. And of course, that news didn't help his nervousness. He over there downing his liquor real hard. So Jax, she goes to fix them some more drinks. So Jax is talking about Chanel and how she wish she would just be honest. That way she'll know how to do her job. Lewis sitting over there really talking about his damn self, talking about, well, maybe she's just scared to tell you the truth. So Jax was like, well, whatever she did or didn't do, the cover-up is always worse than the crime. So now Lewis is feeling extra guilty. It's like, should he tell her the truth in this particular moment or not? And even if he was thinking about it, next thing you know, his phone is ringing and Alex Dunn is calling him. I'm like, really, Lewis? You could have at least thought of your own name. But whatever. Tony is calling him and he is trying to hit the side button to turn the ringer off and everything. He's fumbling around and ishing bricks. It is too funny to watch. Jax, she's in the background like, damn, who blowing your phone up? So he lies and tells Jax that it's one of his co-workers calling. So Jax, she tells him he should probably answer because it could be an emergency. And he's reluctant because he knows damn well that it's Tony. When he answers, he's doing all this hemming and hawing and really not listening to the person on the other line long enough to even answer their questions or to respond, if you ask me. Like, he's too fidgety for me. I would have picked up on that, but that's neither here nor there. Tony, however, is on the other end talking about, oh, she's there, right? Like, yes, she's there, Tony. Where else would she be? That's her home. What are you talking about? And then she says with an attitude, oh, you asked me to call you and then then when I do, you can't talk. First of all, you community slut you. He texted you 4 days in the morning when he couldn't sleep, and you waited all day to call him back. What you been doing all day that you couldn't respond earlier? You know he's back with his wife, so why you wait this time of the night to even call him back in the first place? So he's playing it off on the end like, you got it. Yep, I'll talk to you in the morning. Click. Baby Lewis was so nervous and scared he did not know what to do. He sat that phone on the table face up. He thought about it, then he put it face down. He thought about it again. Maybe she was going to call back, and he tried to hide the phone under his thigh. I said, oh, no, sir. With all his nervousness and fumbling around and fidgeting around and trying to hide your phone, that would have sent up red flags for me. And I'm surprised Jax didn't pick up on it. And side note, did y'all peep out Jax's outfit? She was giving Theo a run for his money because it was giving Gordon Gartrell with one arm out. It was like she took one of Lewis's shirts and just made it into her own little cute dress. I said, all right, Jax. So both sides are working on their opening statements. The trial is getting ready to begin, and the people are split down the middle. Some think Chanel is guilty, and some think she is innocent. So both sides, they give good opening statements, and then they get to going back and forth. So when they get into the evidence that could suggest this was a cover-up, the officer was like, there was a wet mat as if someone had just got out of the shower. There were freshly washed clothes. The body was moved, and she took 2.5 hours before she even called for help. Now, if I was on the jury, all of that to me would have me looking at Chanel with a side eye. But Jack, she tries to get up there and say, well, could all that be a result of somebody being in fear? And I'm like, nah, sis, nah. But the officer did tell Jax that it was possible. So here's the thing. In last week's episode, at the end, when we saw the last flashback, it suggests that somebody came in and hit JT from behind. Once he was off of her and she saw whoever it was, there was absolutely no blood on Chanel, none on her sweater. But if we see the very first flashback in the beginning of the episode, there was blood everywhere. Maybe Natasha did come in, saw her dad on top of Chanel. Her little lick was enough to get JT up off of her, but we know it didn't take him out because JT was still crawling on the floor, grabbing the back of his head and still cursing at Chanel, saying, call for effing help. And that might have sent Chanel into Sasha mode because we see she has split personalities, right? And she decided at that moment to go ahead and get all her licks back and end things. And that's where the blood splatter came from. So guys, what do you think? Drop down in the comments and let me know what your theories are. Why did Chanel feel the need to take a shower and wash her clothes if somebody else came in and bashed JT over the back of the head? So we get this scene with Lewis and Spencer, and he's trying to apologize to Spencer because he's been mad at him ever since the whole Hamilton thing. So he's asking Spencer, would he like to switch schools like next week? And I'm like, Lewis, what's the rush? Are you doing it because you really want him to go to this school? Or you're trying to get away from running into Tony? But he still wouldn't get away from her because Naima is friends with Tony's daughter, Hattie. So that wouldn't help. So I guess he's being legit with this whole performing arts school thing. So he tells him everything the school offers, and Spencer is very excited about it. He's interested. He wants the link. So Lewis, he starts apologizing, and I think he's being very genuine in his apology, telling him he didn't mean to dismiss his interest. Spencer told him it was all good and that he appreciated it. So for now, Lewis is back in good graces with his son. So in the next scene, we see Jax talking to the media. Corey comes up and he's not pleased. So of course he steps to her once again, asking her about stepping on his toes. He's first chair. And, you know, she's like, you weren't available. So I helped out on our case, and hit him with what he said to her earlier, fewer emotions and more reasons, and walked off. So later on that evening, we see Jax going into Naima's room, and we learn that Mama Lou has a new boyfriend named Kevin Douglas that's giving out gifts. So Naima says she doesn't like him, and Jax is like, why? Did something happen? She says, no, I just want Grandpa Paul back. So Jax, she gave her a big old hug and told her she was sorry. But she did try to confirm that last name to Mr. Douglas because we already know Jax getting ready to do some digging. Now, if I was Jax, me and Mama Lou would fall out yet again because how dare you have some new man that you just met be around my child and dishing out gifts, and I have yet to lay eyes on this man or even know who the hell he is. Like, no ma'am. Absolutely not. So we see Corey in his office minding his own business, trying to prepare for court the next morning when the partners come in and invite him out to drinks. And I guess he thought about it after turning it down initially and was like, do you guys like cigars? So he takes them to a chill spot that one of his frat brothers opened up, and they're talking. And they start talking about Jack, saying that she's very good at what she does. She's like one of the best. And Corey is like, this is the biggest case of his career. And they're like, well, how can we help you win? Basically, what it was given to me is these two male chauvinists have wanted Jax out from the beginning. They've been kissing Corey's behind since they first laid eyes on him. They want Corey in Jax's spot. That's what it is. But we didn't hear what Corey's response was to that. But I think what Corey was trying to do is get them to get Jax off his back when it comes to the trial. He is trying to focus strictly on self-defense so he can use it to get clemency for Isabella with her case. But Jax keeps throwing all kind of different angles in it, and it's messing him up. We know he has an agenda other than this Chanel thing. So Jax, she calls her mom and she throws Kevin's name out there, and Mama Lou wants to know how did she find out. And Jax was like, well, why you didn't tell me about him? And basically what Mama Lou was giving is, it's none of your business. Like, I'm happy and I want you to be happy for me. So Jax asked her, where did you meet him at? And she said she took some of Paul's things down to some shelter, and he just so happened to be volunteering down there. And you can bet your behind Jax was writing it all down like, okay, Shiloh's shelter. But is it me, or does it seem like Mama Lou's personality is different from season 1? Or is it that she's drinking more wine, because she was stumbling to the car a little bit when she went to get those groceries from out of the trunk? So Jack, she gets called in by Steven and Vince. I guess they're the top partners. I don't really know who's in charge, but they're asking her to let Corey shine, like let him lead, let him be first chair, like get up off his neck. And she's like, well, should I go buy some knee pads? And of course, here comes Vince with some inappropriate comment saying, well, just tickle the balls a little bit. So Jack, she knows what time it is. She says this has been very informative, and she basically noted what was said and she left. So we see Lewis and Jax in therapy with Dr. Webb, and he's praising them, saying that it looks like they are having clear, honest communication and progressing quite well. And she says, yes, Lewis is asking me about my work now, which he never does. But she did have a problem with him and the whole performing arts school thing with Spencer and not talking to her about it first. So they have a whole exchange about that, but they also work it out right there in front of Dr. Webb, and he gives them praise for coming up with a resolution. And then he brings up trust. And Lewis says he trusts Jax, and Jax says she's never not trusted Lewis. Like he's always been honest. And I'm like, baby, they are laying it on thick this whole entire episode with the whole honesty, trust thing. And it's just going to be one big betrayal at the end of the day when this lady finds out this man looked her in her eyes and lied, okay? And side note, I just looked at McKinley Freeman, who plays Lewis, and he resembles Marceau Scott from Love and Marriage Huntsville. Marceau posted this AI, I'm guessing it's an AI picture with him with hair, and his caption was, should he grow his hair out? Although Marceau wears his hair bald, they still favor a little bit. So anyway, the next thing I know, Lewis is meeting up with Tony in a dark parking lot, and she's walking up talking about it's been a minute. So she basically gets straight to the point and tells Lewis that the baby is not his. And he says, well, how do you know? Did you take a paternity test? She says, no, I didn't. And I don't know. But you're back with Jax. JT is gone. And I'm the only one who wants this child. I'm like, girl, that don't even sound right. And she's like, so why even get a test? And he's like, okay, fine. Like, he's cool with that, and tells her that him and Jax are in a good place and he doesn't want to ruin that. He doesn't mean to hurt her feelings by saying all of that. And she's like, look, don't worry, I didn't fall in love. I always knew you would go back to your wife. And then she says that she's learned that it never ends well. And I'm like, well, how many married men have you fallen in love with, Tony? So we got the sister circle out to eat, laughing and kalacky-lacking, having a good little time until they bring Chanel up. So Autumn wanted to know how she was doing, and Jax told her that she was mad at her because she accused her of lying. And Sally gave Jax a look like she was guilty or something, talking about what makes you think that. And Autumn blurted out like, I think that too, and gave a rundown like Adrian, the money, this and that and the other. And she says it's not like Chanel hasn't lied before. So Jax gave Autumn a look like, oh, really? Do tell. So Autumn is like, I don't know if she planned it, blah, blah, blah. So Sally is like, wow. So we see the hood come out of Sally a little bit, and she gets mad, talking about she thought she came there to be with her friends to find out ways to support her cousin, and says that she might as well go home and be with a husband that hates her, which is all her fault, by the way, than to sit there and listen to all of that mess. And she gets up and storms out. And I'm like, first of all, that's the same thing Chanel said to Jax last season. If I wanted to be treated badly, I just would have stayed home. I'm like, Chanel and Sally are just alike. I understand you not wanting people talking about your cousin, but you got a little too defensive for my liking, and it's giving guilt. Like you are hiding something. I don't know if you were the one that bashed him over the head, but just this action alone puts you at the top of the list, sis. So it's the next day and we're at the trial, and they have Miss Mavis on the witness stand playing in everybody's face, giving the performance of her life, trying to paint this picture that JT was this angel. So Chanel, she notices that Natasha and Jordan are in the back of the courtroom, but Mavis is up there still lying, saying that things didn't happen. And Chanel, she just started saying that she's lying. She caused a disruption, and they get this recess. So Jax and Corey, they take her to the back, and she's like, she knows that she's lying because she's the one that provided me glasses for my black eyes. And she's like, I told her don't bring the kids, and I'm not going to let her abuse my kids the way she did hers. And Jax and Corey was looking like, wait a minute, hold up. What did she do to JT? So after the recess, they get Mavis back on the stand, and Corey is examining her, and he's like, he basically called her out for abusing her kids, and she's like, I've never abused my kids. He said, oh, so you didn't burn him with a cigarette on his thigh? And she's looking all crazy in the face, and Chanel has this little Joker smirk on her face. The judge had to tell Corey that he knows better than that, and Corey really didn't care because he got his point across. They got Mavis over there looking like Chip Fields when she was burning Penny on Good Times with the iron. So Jax, she goes to see Evan, and she notices that he has a whole lot of security throughout his building to be a financial planner. And he chalks it up to say that he wants his clients to be safe. So Jack, she asked him about Adrian, whether he was his client or not. And Evan was like, no, he's more like an associate. And Jax was like, well, what happened? And he tells her sometimes people present one way when they're really another. And that seems to be a lot of people in this particular episode. And he basically dismisses Jax as if he was so booked and busy. Next thing you know, Evan is going to see Chanel in the jail. And I'm like, out of all the people outside of her lawyers, why is Evan the first person that we see visit her? We don't see Sally go see her. We don't see Autumn go see her. And Adrian already said why he didn't want to go see her. But why is Evan the first person we see? But anyway, he goes to try to say he needs his money, and she's like, I don't have it. And he talks about Adrian, and he tells her Adrian is not who you think he is. Do you want to know more about the man you fell in love with? So he basically went to drop dime on Adrian, but we don't get to hear exactly what was said. So Daniel, he brings an update to Jax about the Will Goose LLC and how it's connected to some kind of gambling organization across seas. And they basically recruit retired athletes. That's probably how JT got involved. So they're trying to figure out if Adrian is in major debt with these people or he's the ringleader in charge of it all. So she asks Daniel to track down Adrian because she needs to talk to him as soon as possible. Then Dan the Man gives her an update on Mama Lou's new boyfriend, Kevin Douglas, and says that he checks out. According to Daniel, everything seems so perfect with the guy. He's tax-paying, he's a widower, a homeowner, and he's never had a moving violation. So Jax was like, are you sure? It seems all too easy. And Daniel was like, sometimes maybe people are just exactly who they say they are. So we see Adrian storming into Evan's office, and he is heated because Chanel told him what Evan told her. So he's like, look, I told you to keep her out of this. And Evan was like, look, I had to cut out the middleman because you coming in here and making all these idle threats and all of this. I didn't like it. So I had to rebalance the power up in this piece. So Adrian is like, I told you to keep Chanel out of this. I would hate to have to bury another friend. And they just go on and on with all of that. I'm getting tired of talking about this $30 million. I really am. So he is saying that, look, Chanel's lawyer came to see me, and basically he was trying to tell Adrian in so many words, you need to handle it. So Jack, she goes to the cigar lounge and she finds Corey and basically confronts him about being reprimanded by the other partners. And he tells her exactly what he said and what happened. And they basically call a truce, and Jax tells him that they can't be letting the white folks come in between them and they need to stick together. Corey, he was down with that, and he's like, well, since we're cool, he handed her a cigar, and they just smoked one together, vibing, staring in each other's eyes. And I'm like, child, it's only a matter of time. So later on, back at the house, Spencer, he gets accepted into the performing arts school. So he is ecstatic. He is happy. He is thanking his parents, especially his dad. So he runs off to talk to Naima about his good news. Now, season 1, he didn't want to have anything to do with Naima, but now they're best buddies. So Jack, she's telling Lewis about Kevin Douglas, her mom's new boyfriend, and how he checked out, and saying that it was a good thing because maybe people are exactly who they say they are. And she kisses him like, just like you, babe, really laying it on thick, making him feel extra guilty about him being so honest all the time and knowing deep down he has this secret he's holding. So later on, we see Jax and Lewis in the bed hunching, and Lewis is making all kind of faces. He is grimacing like it's hurting. He can't get into it. He just looks like he has a lot on his mind. And I don't know how Jax doesn't notice, but he does like try to turn her around and get it from behind so she doesn't see how he's looking, I guess. So the next thing you know, he goes to the bathroom and he texts Alex Dunn, aka Tony, and says, I changed my mind. I need to know if it's mine. I'm like, unbelievable. When are you going to talk to your wife about this situation, sir? So it's the next morning at the firm, and Jack, she gets this unknown phone call, and it's Adrian wanting to meet up. So he's over there at Chanel's house, and she says she'll meet him over there in an hour. So Daniel was like, do you want me to come with you? And she was like, no, I got it. And she said something about Sally trusting him. And Daniel was like, but you think he unalived JT? And she was like, yeah, but he's just a scared man in love. And I think she kind of thought about Damon in that moment and was like, second thought, you should come with me, drive a separate car, and stay outside. And if you don't hear from me every 6 minutes, call the police. So Jack, she gets in Chanel's house and she's calling Adrian's name, and he's somewhere sitting in the dark looking at a picture of JT and Chanel. So when he sees her, he's telling her to have a seat, and she's like, no, I'm good. So he stands up and you can see the piece in the small of his back, and it fades to black, and he's like, we need to talk. And that's where the episode ends. Woo, child, there was a lot going on. Do you guys think Adrian is going to do anything to Jax? I really don't think so. Adrian seemed like he just really can't bust a grape. But anyway, Lewis needs to hurry up and run his mouth before it comes out in that courtroom. I'm telling you, he's sitting up there with the puppy dog look, and it's just not going to be a good look when Jax finds out. Drop down in the comments. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode. As always, you guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.